The galaxy had known humanity for their wars, their devastating conflicts, and their unyielding resolve in the face of overwhelming odds. When they first arrived on the galactic stage, they were met with suspicion, wariness, and an unspoken fear. After all, the galaxy had long been accustomed to peace. They had witnessed the delicate balance of interstellar politics, where diplomacy was the key to maintaining order, where every move was measured, every word chosen carefully. But the humans had no such restraint in their past. They had forged their way to the stars through blood, fire, and sheer willpower. Their past as conquerors, as fierce warriors, seemed to preclude them from the more subtle art of diplomacy. And yet, as the years passed, something unexpected happened. Earth, once a fringe world caught in the chaos of its own internal wars, had become an unexpected voice in galactic diplomacy. Humans, often seen as the epitome of war, had begun to offer a new way. They had learned from their past, the mistakes of their aggressive history, and sought to create a future where their power could be wielded not through the sword, but through words. Humanity's first major diplomatic mission was with the Valori, an ancient and wise species known for their refined and peaceful nature. The Valori were one of the first to recognize humanity's potential as diplomats. Though they held deep reservations, a peace conference was scheduled in a neutral sector of space, a secluded station known as the Seraph's Cradle, where leaders from various factions could meet without fear of surveillance. The Valori had long been the arbiters of peace in the galaxy, and now humanity, with all its history of conflict, would be asked to broker a new peace. At the heart of this delicate negotiation was the conflict between two warring factions, the Valori and the Xanti. The Valori, once the dominant species in the region, had suffered numerous losses to the militaristic Xanti, who were driven by an insatiable thirst for conquest. Despite their technological advantages, the Valori were not prepared for the Xanti's relentless aggression. The situation had escalated to the point where both sides were prepared to launch an all-out war that could engulf the entire region. But the galaxy's peacekeepers had a different solution in mind. Humanity. General Arthur Hale, once a military leader known for his ruthless tactics in battle, now found himself in the unlikeliest of positions, seated at the head of a negotiating table, tasked with securing peace between two ancient civilizations on the brink of total war. His reputation preceded him. His past was a history of overkill, of extreme responses to threats. He had earned a reputation as a tactician capable of ending conflicts with decisive force, but now his task was different. This time, he was to wield the full weight of humanity's knowledge and persuasion, rather than their might. General Hale began Ambassador Thaal of the Valori, his voice a calm, measured tone. "We have brought you here because of your record. You are known for your ability to bring resolution through decisive means. Yet there are many in this room who fear that your reputation for destruction will taint this negotiation." Hale met the ambassador's gaze, his expression calm. "I understand your concerns, Ambassador, but I assure you, peace is the only option here. There is no need for violence, not now, not when we have the opportunity to bring everyone to the table." The room was filled with representatives from various factions. The Xanti, who sat across from the humans with faces that betrayed their distrust, the Calivian traders, whose race valued neutrality above all, and the Valori, whose calm and wisdom were unmatched in the galaxy. But despite the diverse makeup of the room, one thing was clear. The fear of humanity's violent past hung heavy in the air. Even the Valori, known for their commitment to peace, were wary. The Xanti representative, General Gorm, was the first to speak. His skin was dark, cracked like stone, and his eyes glowed with a ferocious energy. "We have nothing to discuss," he sneered. "The Valori are weak. We have crushed them time and time again, and we will continue until their pathetic leaders are wiped from existence." Hale did not flinch. His reputation had preceded him in many circles, and while he knew he had to manage the negotiation with care, he also understood the power of strategic silence. "General Gorm," Hale said quietly, but with an edge that carried across the room, "you are right about one thing. The Valori have been weakened, but they have also learned, and you have underestimated their resolve. If you persist in this aggression, you risk bringing the full force of humanity down upon you." The room was silent as Hale's words sunk in. The Zanti commander's expression faltered for just a moment, then hardened again, but it was clear that Hale had struck a nerve. Enough threats, Ambassador Orath of the Calivians interjected, his voice smooth and diplomatic. We are here to talk about peace, not war. General Hale, surely you must see that this cannot continue. There must be a way for us all to live without further bloodshed. Peace comes with sacrifices, Hale said, his voice steady. I'm not here to make empty promises. What I offer is a path forward, not just for the Valori and Zanti, but for all of us. We don't need to fight to secure the future. We need to outsmart the enemy. That's where we can help. The human diplomats, with their deep understanding of human psychology, had crafted a plan, a series of proposals designed to play on the strengths and weaknesses of both the Zanti and Valori. Through careful cultural manipulation, the humans had designed an agreement that would shift the power dynamics without firing a single shot. It was a diplomatic maneuver unlike anything the galaxy had seen before, one that could change the course of galactic history. Hours passed as the negotiations continued, with General Hale carefully guiding the discussion, making concessions where necessary, and pushing when the time was right. He wasn't just a soldier, he was a strategist, a master of negotiation, and a student of human nature. He understood that to secure peace, one had to understand the motivations of both sides, not just their weapons or their fleets, but their fears, their desires, and their limitations. At the close of the negotiations, both the Valori and Zanti agreed to a ceasefire. A fragile peace had been brokered, not through force, but through humanity's ability to outthink their enemies and to understand the deeper currents of galactic politics. As the delegates left the room, Ambassador Thal turned to Hale. You have done what many thought impossible. Humanity may have earned a new role in the galaxy, but the cost of peace is high. Remember that. Hale nodded, but in his heart, he knew one thing. This was only the beginning. Humanity had entered the galactic stage not as conquerors, but as diplomats, and their reputation would follow them. Whether they would be seen as saviors or as a new breed of power in the galaxy, only time would tell. But for now, peace had been secured, and humanity had become its architects. The quiet hum of the Seraph's Cradle station was a stark contrast to the uneasy tension that filled its halls. The peace agreement between the Valori and Zanti had been signed, but the galaxy's eyes were still on humanity. The ink had barely dried on the ceasefire when whispers began circulating. Would humanity remain peaceful, or would their aggressive past return to haunt them? General Arthur Hale stood on the balcony of Earth's command center, his gaze fixed on the stars beyond. The battle had been won, diplomatically this time, but he knew peace was never as simple as a signed document. 1,000 new questions arose now, each one testing the resilience of the fragile accord he had helped forge. The Valori and Zanti had agreed to cease hostilities, but deep-seated animosities between them had not evaporated in a single round of talks. And worse yet, other factions in the galaxy, both on Earth's side and against it, were beginning to ask uncomfortable questions about humanity's role. General Hale, Lieutenant Jackson's voice cut through his thoughts. We've received word from the Galactic Council. Some of the smaller factions are requesting meetings with Earth. They want assurances that humanity's peacekeeping efforts will remain in line with their promises. Hale turned to face his officer, his eyes hardening. Assurances? What do they expect from us? We've already demonstrated that we can broker peace. I'm not sure, sir, Jackson said, his voice hesitant, but some factions are concerned. The Calivians are still wary of humanity's past, and the Utor are. They want us to clarify our stance before they make any decisions. Fine, Hale said, already moving toward the communications console. We'll answer their questions. But tell them one thing, humanity is committed to keeping the peace, and if they want to work with us, they'll have to accept that. We don't make compromises on peace, not anymore. Days later, General Hale found himself seated at the head of another round of talks, this time with the Calivian and Utor representatives. The council chamber on Earth's flagship Horizon was a vast, high-ceilinged room, its walls covered in holographic projections of the galaxy, highlighting the key factions, trade routes, and diplomatic agreements. The Calivian ambassador, Lyra, was first to speak. A tall, slender being with translucent skin, Her six eyes flicked from the hollow screen to Hale, who had assumed his seat at the center of the table. Her voice was smooth, almost melodic, but her words held a sharp edge. "General Hale," she began, her gaze unwavering, "we cannot ignore humanity's reputation. While your diplomacy has yielded results with the Valori and Zanti, how do we know that your methods will not shift once again when a stronger foe appears? Your past, though it's been somewhat refined, remains troubling. How can we trust that humanity will always seek peaceful solutions?" Hale kept his posture straight, his expression calm. "The same way you trust any peacekeeper," he said, his voice steady. "By our actions. We've fought wars, yes, but we've learned from those battles. Humanity's future is now tied to the survival of peace, not destruction. If we are to stand as leaders in this galaxy, it's not through the might of our weaponry, but through the strength of our word. And we've proven that, time and time again." Lyra's eyes narrowed, but she remained silent, considering Hale's response. Across the table, the Utor representative, a broad-shouldered, heavily armored figure named Takal, shifted uneasily in his seat. His species had a reputation for being fiercely independent, and while they respected strength, they didn't easily embrace alliances. Takal leaned forward, his deep voice rumbling like thunder. "You speak of peace, General Hale, but I ask you, what happens when peace fails? You claim humanity is committed to a new future, but how do you plan to keep the peace when the next threat emerges? What then?" Hale paused, his eyes flicking briefly to the holomap in front of him. The galaxy was vast, and the question Takal asked was one humanity had been grappling with since they'd first stepped onto the galactic stage. Peace was fragile, and as much as the human race had changed, it would never be free from the threat of war. "We'll do what we've always done, adapt. Humanity is not bound by the past, but by the need to survive and thrive. We don't start wars, we finish them. But I promise you, when the time comes, we will stand with you, not against you. We have the strength to protect, not just ourselves, but the peace we've worked so hard to secure." Takal seemed satisfied with the answer, though it was clear that the Utor's warlike nature still held deep reservations. Lyra, too, was silent, but her six eyes were fixed on Hale, perhaps seeing him now in a new light, less as a potential threat and more as a partner. Before anyone could respond further, the holographic projector came to life with a new transmission, this time from the Zanti, who, despite their defeat, had been watching the developments closely. The Zanti representative, General Gorm, appeared in the chamber, his expression cold and unreadable. "You humans, always in the thick of things," General Gorm sneered, though there was a noticeable hint of respect in his voice. "I will make this simple. The Zanti are not here to beg for your peace, but we are willing to abide by the agreement, for now. We will not forget the humiliation you forced upon us. However, do not mistake this for submission. The Zanti will remember." Hale's expression remained neutral, but his words were firm. "You lost, General, and you can either move forward with peace or continue on the path to destruction. Your choice." The room was thick with tension. The Zanti, though defeated, were not broken, and their pride was a dangerous thing. But humanity's message was clear. The path to peace was open, but only for those willing to walk it. As the talks continued and the factions began to make their own decisions, Hale couldn't help but feel the weight of the galaxy's expectations bearing down on him. Humanity had brokered peace, but it was not the end. It was only the beginning of a much larger struggle, a struggle for trust, for stability, and for the future of the galaxy itself. The galaxy might have seen humanity as an unpredictable force of nature, but now they had to decide whether they were willing to accept the humans' new role, architects of peace or harbingers of war. General Hale knew one thing for certain. Humanity's journey on the galactic stage would be defined by its actions, not just its words, and he was determined to prove that Earth was a force for peace. The weight of the galaxy's gaze had never been more intense. Humanity had, for the first time, not just brokered a peace agreement, but had done so in a way that no one had expected, through strategy, understanding, and sheer force of will. But the cost of this success was not immediate. It was something that humanity would have to continue proving over and over in the years to come. General Hale knew this, And as the representatives of various galactic factions filed out of the negotiation chamber, he realized that the real battle had only just begun. The final days of the peace conference were filled with a series of diplomatic protocols. Treaties were signed, trade agreements solidified, and the fragile ceasefire between the Vailori and Zanti held steady. The immediate threat of war had been averted, but the future of peace was something much more delicate. General Hale stood before the viewing screen in his quarters aboard the horizon, his eyes scanning the quiet beauty of space outside the window. Earth had earned its place in galactic diplomacy, but now they needed to maintain it, something far harder than any military victory. General Hale, Lieutenant Jackson's voice echoed through the room. There's news from the Calivians and the Utor. They've agreed to extend their full support to the peace initiatives, but they're requesting one final concession from us, something more concrete to seal the deal. Hale turned slowly, his face thoughtful. What do they want? Jackson hesitated before responding. They want us to lead a new initiative, one that includes more than just the Valori and Zanti. The Calivians are proposing that humanity act as a mediator for a new galactic council, one focused not on military strength, but on maintaining peace across the galaxy. They want us to be the chair. Hale frowned. The position would be a huge honor, but it also came with risks. A council? That's a big responsibility. What does this really mean for Earth? It means we become the arbiters of peace, General, and it'll mean making hard decisions, especially with factions like the Zanti and Utor still uncertain of their place in the galaxy. The pressure will be on us to keep things from escalating. Hale exhaled slowly. And if we refuse? Then we risk losing their trust. The peace we fought so hard to establish could collapse. Other factions will start questioning whether humanity is serious about its role in the galaxy. They need to see that we are committed to lasting peace, not just temporary solutions. Hale glanced once more at the stars outside. We've already fought for peace once, he said quietly, more to himself than to Jackson. If we back down now, what does that say about us? About humanity's future? Jackson nodded solemnly. Exactly, sir. It's about showing them we're ready to lead, no matter the cost. The next day, Hale stood before a holographic projection of the Galactic Council, his posture straight, his expression calm. The room was filled with representatives from all across the galaxy. The Vailori, the Calivians, the Utor, and even a few members from smaller neutral factions. The air was heavy with anticipation, the weight of their collective gaze focused on the human general. This is it, Hale thought. This is what will define humanity's place in the stars. Ambassador Lyra of the Calivians spoke first. Her tone was measured, her voice calm but firm. General Hale, you have proven time and again that humanity can broker peace in the galaxy, but now we ask you to step into a new role, to lead the first Galactic Council dedicated to peacekeeping and diplomatic resolution. Hale nodded slowly, his eyes meeting hers. I accept, he said, his voice clear and unwavering. But let me be clear, this is not just about maintaining peace. This is about building trust. It's about putting the past behind us and focusing on a future where no species needs to resort to war to resolve their differences. There was a murmur of agreement from the room. Even the Zanti representative, General Gorm, watched in silence. The Zanti had long viewed humanity with skepticism, and their warlike nature made them unlikely allies in any peace process. But Hale knew that peace would not be built through coercion, it would be built by example. We must be the first to set that example, Hale continued. Humanity will not just mediate, we will lead by our actions. We will demonstrate that diplomacy and understanding can achieve what weapons never could. I will work with every one of you, Zanti, Valori, Calivian, Utor, and others, to make sure that peace is not just an ideal, but a reality for us all. His words hung in the air, heavy with the responsibility they carried. The room was silent for a long moment before Lyra spoke again. Then it is settled, she said softly, her tone warm but respectful. Humanity will chair the first Galactic Council for Peace, and may the stars bear witness to this new chapter in our collective history. The days that followed were filled with meetings and preparations as the Galactic Council's first session began to take shape. The groundwork had been laid, and now it was time for action. Humanity had secured its place as the architects of peace, but the road ahead would not be easy. Every decision would be scrutinized, every choice would have consequences, and every faction would have its own demands. General Hale sat at the head of the council table, surrounded by the representatives of the galaxy. His hands rested on the edge of the table, and as he looked around the room, he could see that the faces before him were filled with uncertainty. But beneath that uncertainty, there was also something else: hope. Humanity, once known for its wars, had now become the guardians of peace. And with this responsibility, they would shape the future of the galaxy, one decision at a time. Hale knew the galaxy would test humanity, just as it had always done. But he was prepared, for humanity had learned from its past, and now it would lead, not with force, but with conviction. And so the first session of the Galactic Council for Peace began. As the representatives from all corners of the galaxy took their seats, a new chapter in history was written, not with the roar of battle, but with the quiet resolve of diplomacy. Humanity had become the architects of peace.